Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody for being here, especially on Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to all the dads. I think this is a good thing to do on your Father's Day. How many of you have heard about geocaching before this event? Quite a few, good, okay. How many of you have ever done a geocache before? A few, all right. Well, hopefully by the end of today, you're going to know everything you need to know to get started and actually to go out and do this really fun hobby. And we're going to try to tell you everything. What I'd like to say is that Rudy and I have been members, premium members on geocaching.com since July of 2003. We've logged almost 300 geocaches ourselves in 13 states and one other country. We're going to be covering all of the basics so that you know how to get started and what to do. If you have a specific question about something that I'm talking about or a slide I'm talking about, go ahead and ask me then. If you have something a little bit not quite related to that, we are going to do a question answer session at the end. And if it's very technical, I'm going to refer you to my tech guy, which is sitting right here running my slideshow, because he's been working with all the devices. So hopefully he can answer most of your questions or figure out how to find the answer. Okay, geocaching is a group that works to support and advance the sport of geocaching for all of Colorado. I have some of their brochures up here. We actually went to an event in Colorado Springs that they held at Penrose Library where they did geocaching.com, and Rudy asked if they would share this program, which they very generously did. I picked up some of the brochures, which are up on the table here, so feel free to take one if you want to. This group is very, very active. They do meet and greets if you want to get out and meet other geocachers. They have a camp out. It's actually the same day we're going to have Heritage Days here, but up in Estes Park. So another fun group to meet people that do this hobby. So what some geocachers say is, I use multi-million-dollar military satellites to find Tupperware in the woods. Okay, geocaching is actually a real-world outdoor treasure hunting game using a GPS-enabled device, which can be this or one of those. Okay. You're going to use a specific set of GPS coordinates, and then you're going to go out and try to find the cache that somebody has hidden. I also have over on the table a set of geocaching terms, because everybody has their acronyms, right? So if you want to know, I'm sure everybody in here knows what a GPS is, but basically it is a global positioning system of satellites that work with a GPS receiver to determine your location on the planet. So, on May 2nd, the accuracy to find a point on the planet went from about 320 feet down to 32 feet. Well, there was a gentleman that was a computer consultant, and he wanted to test that accuracy, so he hid a stash out in the woods in Beaver Creek, Oregon. He posted those coordinates on a site for GPS enthusiasts. Well, a few days later, 2 readers of that forum went out looking for it. They had a lot of fun finding it, and they started spreading the word. So on September of 2000, geocaching.com started with actually 75 caches. Now, there are 2.7 million and counting all the time geocaches in the world. The accuracy can be as good as about 6 to 10 feet. The technology for getting a device is actually a lot less than, of course, at the beginning, several years ago, or in some cases free, because with a smartphone you can download a free app to your cell phone. Of course, in our area, where because when you're using a smartphone, it relies on the cell towers. Well, up here we don't have really good coverage, so up here I would suggest using a GPS unit. But in the Springs, you could probably use a smartphone with no problems. So how it works is someone hides a weatherproof container, and of course weatherproof is really important because especially in our area, they are set out year-round, and we get snow and all kinds of things, so it has to be a weatherproof container. The owner of the cache goes on to geocaching.com, and they list the coordinates. Somebody goes out and finds it with a device, you sign a log, and you do some trade items, which I'm going to talk about in more detail. So why do you go out and geocache? Or who does that? People from all over. And I found out recently that even Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts both have a geocaching merit badge, which I thought was really fun. So that's pretty cool. So why are you going out to geocache? Well, let me tell you, geocachers, just like here, Pikes Peak Historic Society, Rudy and I have placed 7 history-related geocaches at historical sites in our area. And so you may have been to these places. A lot of you have probably been to these places, but you may not necessarily know the history. And so our history is on the geocaches. So people take you to places, really interesting places. You get to share the experience. Of course, you can do it alone. A lot of people do it by themselves, but you can do it as a group. You can do it. We love doing it with grandkids or nieces and nephews. It's really a fun hobby. A lot of people like the challenge of it because it's actually like finding a treasure hunt in the woods. So a lot of people like the challenge. And of course in Colorado, we all live here because we like the out of doors and doing things out of doors. So this is just another way to do that in a fun way. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about containers. I mentioned before that they need to be weather resistant. There are different sizes of containers from a little tiny nano to large, and I've seen some online really large. Some of them are only small enough to about this size or less and don't contain a pencil, so that's one thing you're going to want to have in your geocache bag. I have a lot of display over here. If you didn't get a chance to look at it before, make sure you come up and look at some of the things up here. Some of them are camouflaged. And we tried to put kind of a variety of different containers, so it's more fun that way. One of the ones that we've used is in a container called a lock and lock, which locks on both sides, and that's very weatherproof. So that one works really well. Go ahead. Okay, so the one in the box, the little tiny one, that's the very smallest. Obviously, you can tell that cannot have a pencil. And one of those terms is BYOP. If you're looking on a website and you see that, that's bring your own pen, because obviously there's not one there. So that shows some of the containers that you can use, and they go all the way from that tiny size. We used to find quite a few of the old film containers. They're not recommending that because they're not quite so reliable. And then they can be an ammo can and even larger than that. Okay, this is, I'll tell you what, geocachers like to be creative. And if you want to see how creative they are, if you go on their website and you look at their Learn section, which I'll point out, they have some videos, and there's a guy in West Virginia that has hidden some amazing ones and tells you how he did them. They are really, really cool. But you can see when you go out looking for one, you've got to be really kind of looking for in a creative way. Think outside the box. These are some of them. The one over there is a birdhouse with a plastic tumbler inside. Here's an alien landscape. Go. Somebody made a squid Lego. Here's kind of a camoed plastic container that looks a lot like leaves. This one's actually a fire bell, and it's inside a room. I don't know exactly where that one is because we got this from geocaching.com, and I don't know what those are. And here's an alien spaceship that was a container. I have over here on one of my displays where we went to a geocache in Washington State that was in a library. And so we found the book that had the cache in it. It was a hollowed out book, and the geocache log was in there. So people get very creative. There's another one we went to not far from that one with a sign posted, a road sign posted, look out for falling cows, which actually had happened. There was a cliff right next to the road, and the cow fell off and landed on top of somebody's minivan. Nobody was hurt except the cow. But so somebody thought that was a great place to put a geocache because it was a pretty cool story. So we found that one. Okay, so what you're going to find inside a geocache is you're going to find some kind of a logbook. It may be a roll. You know, the little tiny ones have smaller, and it may be like a little tablet. It should have an information sheet that kind of explains. One of the terms that we have is muggle, which is a non-geocacher, and that did come from Harry Potter. But obviously, like if you're looking for a treasure in the woods, you don't want to lead somebody that doesn't know what that is to that because they might loot the treasure. So you want to watch out for muggles when you're out looking if you're in a populated area. Some of them are and some of them are not. In the container someplace, it should contain something like this that says, you know, if you found this by accident, this is what it is. Please leave it alone. And then this will have the information about that particular geocache, so you know for one thing if you found the right one. Okay, it's going to have a pencil sometimes, like I said, depending on the size of the cache. It'll have another term that we have is swag, which is stuff we all get. And that just is little trade items left by other geocachers. So if you take one, you're going to replace it with something else. It's not something you have to do, but that is a really fun part for kids to do. In fact, we've taken kids to, before we went geocaching, to a dollar store and let them pick out some things. And that just kind of adds fun to what they're doing. There also could be some trackable items, which would be a travel bug and or a geocoin. And I'm going to talk more about what those are later. Okay, so where can you find one? This is Colorado. Denver would be up someplace up at the top. We'd be down here, and where we are now would be over here. Each one of these green squares represents a geocache that has been hidden. So you can see, I mean, you could do this from now till whenever and find a bunch every day and still have more to find. So what kind of places do they get placed at? Places where there's natural beauty, parks, state, city, county, when you're hiking and biking, historical places, places you didn't even know existed. One of the things that Rudy and I like to do is when we travel, see what the zip code is where we're traveling and enter that and find the geocaches in the area, because the geocachers will have placed them where places where locals know that you would have no idea about. And we found some really cool geocaches that way. Okay, they are in over 200 countries, including Iraq and Afghanistan. There are over 26,000 just in Colorado. There is even one on the International Space Station. And I do have that listing, a printout of that listing over there. And it's actually been found. Can you guess by who? Another astronaut, yeah. So, and his picture's over there. So I'll tell you, geocachers, you can find one underground. They are every place. But not quite every place. They cannot be in a national park unless there is not a physical cache there. We do have one in the fluorescent fossil beds, which I'm going to talk about. That's an earth cache, and there is no physical cache there, but we'll talk about those later. You can be on private property if you have the owner's permission. There's several other places that they cannot be, and if you're ever going to hide one, or even if you're looking at one, you want to kind of be aware of where not to look. But the one thing about geocaches is they are never buried underground. They will not be buried. They will be camouflaged or maybe things stacked on top, but they will not be buried underground, so you don't have to dig. Okay, so who can hide a geocache? The 7 that Rudy and I placed, and we placed the one at the museum a year ago, June of last year, and then we just recently got the other 6 placed. That's the first ones we've ever placed. And it's quite a process. If you ever get to that point and you think you want to do it, you're welcome to check with Rudy and I, and we will share what expertise we have learned. We wanted them to be really good. We all wanted them to be related to history. And we have the 2 people I got the history from here today. Celinda, will you stand up? She's our former president, and she did the majority of the history because I wanted it not to just be some little treasure hunt that you find in the woods. We have such unique history there. That's what I wanted to share. So Celinda provided that, and a lot of the historical photos, which are, I think, really fun. The other person that really helped was the cemetery cache, which is a different kind of cache. But Donna, would you stand up? I asked her, because she does the cemetery walk, and so she goes out there and she knows about who's there and all kinds of information. So she provided that information there, and Celinda provided photos of the people that we were talking about, that the graves are there. So that one's a really fun one to do. And before you hide one, you really want to have some experience. I wouldn't suggest a brand new geocacher go out and hide some. But we do have friends that have hidden them with their grandkids as an activity, and they love doing that, so that's fun. Now, when you place a geocache, you have to go by all their guidelines, and then you place it online, and then a volunteer reviewer, and I think there's maybe 300 in the world. A volunteer reviewer does not, of course, go to every geocache because there's no way they could do that, but they do look online and make sure you've complied with everything. And then when they do that, then they publish it and it's active. Okay, so like I said before, you need a cell phone or a GPS unit. And where can you get those? You can get them in REI. You can go on to geocaching.com or just online looking for GPS units. You could maybe use the one in your car for a little bit, but you're not going to have as good a results finding the actual cache with one of those. But we do use those to get close to a parking spot, because when you're using a handheld and it's telling you go this way, well, there's no road that goes there. We use both of them to get close to the place and then get out and walk. That's a good question. When you go online, and I'm going to talk about the difficulty in terrain, the description that you get, that will kind of, a lot of the owners will tell you, like, if it's going to be a 5-mile walk to get into this one. And the terrain rating would be higher on something like that. What we do is when we're just out driving and we're like, okay, there's one someplace close, but we want to know how to actually drive to it, that's when we put the coordinates in your GPS, your car GPS, because there's a place to put coordinates. That'll get you as close as you can by driving, and then you'll get out and walk and see how far. And so you may be, usually when we're walking, a close by one is probably less than 500 feet, wouldn't you say? Something like that. So, but it's real important to read the description and get that kind of information. Okay, if you have questions on, if you have a device and you're not really sure or you have questions about it, Rudy is my tech guy. He has been working with the app on the cell phone as well as the GPS unit. He may not be able to answer everything, but we can probably direct you to where to find an answer. So if you have a question about that, you can talk to him after the session. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do after you have your device is you're going to go on geocaching.com and you are going to register. You will need a username, which is a geo nickname, and Rudy and mine, we weren't very creative. We just said Rudy and Kathy. Does anybody else have one that they've registered with one? Scott? Salty Hog. Oh, I've seen you. I didn't know that was you. The way I've seen him do that is as the owner of the caches placed, I get an email every time there's a log. And so I've seen that name. I didn't know that was Scott. So you can get as creative as you want. If you're doing it with kids, let them help decide what the name is. That's kind of fun. You need that, and then you need a password. This is showing the difference because you can do a basic free membership. When you do all this, you just need your nickname, geo nickname, and your password, and you get a free basic membership. Or there's the premium membership, which is $30 a year. If you're not sure you're going to get into this hobby, just do the basic. But if you really think you're going to get into it, Rudy's going to tell you a couple of the benefits we like to do that.
You can do with a premium membership that you can't do with a basic.
Rudy, why don't you stand up and turn?
One of the most critical things when you find a geocache that you want to go find on geocaching.com, you need to download a minimum, the name of the cache and the coordinates. That'll give you information to find it. But when you get out there, you have questions, and I wonder what they said about this.
What size container?
What size container, all kinds of stuff. If
How
you have
far
a premium membership, when you download it, you get the full description, you get the logs. A lot of times, logs are a key. Someone will say, I think your coordinates are about 20 foot off. So that lets you know, okay, I'm going to widen my circle a little bit and look that way. So it's very beneficial if you get into the hobby at all. It's well worthwhile to have the premium. It makes it a lot easier.
And some of the geocaches are premium only access. You can only access. But there's plenty if you just do a basic. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open your app on your device or on your computer on geocaching.com. Then you're going to log on like I said. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. At about the middle of the screen under OR, that I registered as PPHS. That would be that nickname on the website. If you click on that, you can see all kinds of stats and kind of your profile, and it'll keep track of how many geocaches and which ones you've done so you don't repeat them or wonder about that. That little box with kind of the V in it, that's where you log out. You can upgrade with the box over here on the right. Next to geocaching, there is a place where you can learn, and that's where you can find those really creative videos. Or if you can't remember something we talked about today, you can find it there, one place. Under Play, if you do that, it's going to bring down a list of things you can click on, and that'll give you different ways to search. You can either do that, or you can enter right next to this magnifying glass with the white thing next to the green box. And you can put in there either, you can search by city, state, coordinates, if you know them, a GC code, which each geocache that's placed has an individual GC code. That is on the list. Or you can do zip code. That's one of our best ways to do is do a zip code, because if you're traveling, you may not know some of the information. If you're going someplace and you're putting in Chicago, that's a pretty big area, so you may want to narrow it down by zip code for a specific area you're going. Okay. Okay, so when we entered 80816, which is the fluorescent zip code, actually there's now a little bit more than 215 caches in that zip code. So that lists that. So that's going to tell you that. Okay, then you're going to get a page like this. That very top one with that kind of turquoise box around it, that is a premium only. So that one with a basic membership, you would not be able to access. All of the other ones you can access. Okay, the one circled is the first one we did was the Pikes Peak Historic Society Museum. Under that, it tells you what the kind of the cache is, and we'll talk about that more. It has our GC code, and then it has who it was placed by, Pikes Peak Historic Society. Then it's going to tell you the distance from where your device is. If you're at home, it's going to know that. If you're here, it's going to know that. If you're out in the woods, it's going to know that. So it'll tell you how far that particular cache is from where you are. People can, for different ways, mark one as a favorite, and we have several favorites. In fact, the museum one has 3 favorites so far. So, okay, the next one is the size of the container. Like I said, that's real important. We don't suggest you go find the really tiny ones as a new geocacher, because we found a lot of them to be real frustrating because they're a lot harder to find. So, start out with a size a little bit, at least a small. That's going to tell you a difficulty rating, and the difficulty is going to be the time and the effort in finding the cache, because some are puzzles and some you have to really use your brains. So that's going to be the difficulty rating. It's on a 1 to 5 star rating, which I'll show you in a minute. The terrain is where you're going to know the physical effort it takes to get to the coordinates. If it's a hike, if it's close by. So one of the terms they use is a park and grab. So, someplace you just get it really fast. You don't have to go off in to get it. Okay, and there's the last 2 columns. One is the last found, which can be really important information, because if you look at it and it hasn't been found for 4 years, it may not still be there, and I wouldn't suggest trying to find one of those at the first, because that could be really frustrating. But if it's been found fairly recent, especially after a whole winter of snow here, it's probably fine. Then the last column is when they actually place that one. Okay, so say we clicked on the PPHS Museum and we brought that up. This is what you get. So again, it has the name of the geocache. It has who hit it under that. There's the difficulty in the terrain with the stars and the 1 to 5 rating. So you can see that. Next to that, there's a little box, and that says the size. That one's a regular one. It's got 3 favorites. The GC code is in the very top right hand. Under that is where you're going to log your visit, which I'm going to talk about more in a little bit. Back over to where it says coordinates. That's what you're looking for, is the coordinates that you're going to get into your unit. And you're going to either, the way we used to do it when we first started, because they did not have the GPS units you could download automatically, we would look online on the computer and print those things out and have all this information, actually physically enter the coordinates into the unit. So now it is a lot easier if you can download them. That's a lot. And you can do a whole big group of geocaches, not just one by one. There's going to be a geocache description that will talk about the cache, which you want to know, especially in our case, because we want people to read the history and see the pictures we posted. There's also going to be a map. Okay? I'm not talking about the log here. But you were, as I said that. Log your visit is up at the top. Okay, those little black boxes, and it says attributes, it's kind of under the map. Those are things of interest or things you want to know, might want to know nearby. And you kind of, if you're on your computer and you take your mouse and you hover over each of those boxes, it'll tell you what that is. But there is another place on the site that you can find out what those are. This one, the P is for parking. The little kid in the stroller, it's kid friendly. There's food nearby, there's gas nearby. So it's good for tourists. So that kind of tells you what's close by. Because if you want a picnic, it'll tell you that. There's all kinds of attributes. Those aren't the only ones. Okay. Sometimes if the owner may put an additional hint, which on the case of our one we did, the view of Crystal Peak has a hint, and we actually made it a little bit more fun by making a riddle you have to solve. So all that gobbledygook stuff in the top is the code, and kids again have a lot of fun decrypting that code. So the decryption key is right there. So that first thing that says Z, if you look at Z on that decryption key, the letter above it is M. The next one over is L, and if you look at the L, the one under it is Y. So the first word on that is my. But if you don't want to take time to figure that out, that decrypt key, you just click on that and it'll decrypt it for you. Kind of a cheating way, but like I said, kids think that's a cool thing to do, so that's a fun thing. Sometimes there will be additional waypoints with other coordinates, and so on that one, because it's in the National Forest, we thought we would put the parking area with those coordinates so that you could park there. You could actually offload an ATV or bicycles. We have people that took their grandkids out and found it by bicycle. And it's less than 2 miles, so you could actually hike to that one. We wanted that one to be a little bit different, a little bit more fun to do. Okay. Okay, this is another, just a map, the same thing. You can make that bigger or smaller if you need a little bit more information on that. And over on the top left, find, under that, you can find other caches hidden by that user. If you find like one of ours, and all of ours are listed as PPHS first, and then it has the name of the cache to make them easy to find. But if you like one by a specific group or person that hides them, you like the way they've done them, you can just click on that right there, and that will take you to all of theirs. You can do nearby caches of the same type. You can do nearby caches that I haven't found. So that's another way to find other caches. Down at the bottom is when you log a find, that's where it's going to be. And that information can sometimes be really important to read. And like Rudy was saying, it may be that you're looking around, you can't figure out, but somebody said, well, I was walking along this hiking trail and the dog kept going over to this log, so I went over to check that out and there was the cache. So that can be really helpful sometimes. Okay, so after you've entered the coordinates and you're going to go look for the cache, you're going to look for anything unusual or out of place, because remember I said they can't be buried, but they can be camouflaged and things stacked on them. You look for some place that you think would be a good place to hide one. If you go and your GPS unit is saying it's got to be right there, but you're looking all around and you don't see anything, you might need to get a little bit wider, come out a little bit, because if you're under the trees, you're getting satellite reception, that can all throw things off. Cloud cover can throw the coordinates off. And remember, there's still an amount that it's not going to be like totally accurate with an arrow saying, here it is. So you might want to check the hint. If you didn't check the hint, see if there's a hint that you can check, and that can help you. If all of that still doesn't work and you just can't find it, it may be that somebody moved it, an animal dragged it off, who knows. Then you would log a did not find, which is also on the list, did not find. You can also check with the owner and see if they can give you another clue if you really want to find that one. Okay, here's another good hint that Rudy and I have found. If you are out in the woods and you're following your GPS unit and you're hiking on a path that goes kind of like this, and you're looking at this, and the arrow is pointing this way, which is up a hill and through all kinds of brush. If you follow that arrow that way, that's called bushwhacking, and that's not necessarily the best way to find the cache. If you can see ahead and you can see that the path is curving to the left, you really kind of want to stay to the left because you don't want to bushwhack. Kids might, but I don't usually want to do that. So, if you keep on going and it's still kind of pointing, and sometimes it'll pop around, and you really have to just kind of, with any GPS unit, use your brain. But the number is going down, you're getting closer, and all of a sudden it starts going up, then you might want to turn around and look again and see which way to go. Okay, so when you're out searching, of course, you want to be safety conscious, especially with kids. We have animals out here you want to be careful about. You do want to be careful of those muggles because you don't want to lead them to a cache that, could be looted. We do something in geocaching called practice cache in, trash out. That's another of those terms. And in April of 2015, 17,846 geocachers around the world collected garbage, restored natural areas, and worked on community improvement projects that weekend. So that's a pretty cool thing for geocachers to do. And a lot of people will have like a garbage bag or a Ziploc or something in their geocaching bag for that purpose. So basically when you're out geocaching, just like if you're hiking, I've been out where I see trash all over. I don't like seeing trash when I go outside. So we want to take only memories and leave only logs, meaning the logs you're entering after finding. Okay, so one more thing I'll talk about. Here. Okay, so you're going to sign the logbook with your date and your geo nickname. That's the physical logbook in the container. You can trade items. You don't have to. And a lot of people don't do that. But that is a fun thing to do, especially like with kids. So you're going to leave something of equal or greater value. Keep them family friendly. And of course up here you don't want food, which would attract unwanted visitors, or liquids, which could freeze because of course they're left out all year. We like to kind of upgrade trade items by doing like camp friendly things, like an emergency poncho, things like that you might want to use out of doors. Okay, you might pick up a trackable, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about. Then when you found that, you've logged it, you've traded whatever, you are going to rehide it back the way it was or better than you found it in the same spot. You're not going to move it and go, oh, the next person's not going to find this one. So, yeah, that wouldn't be. And then you're going to log your visit. Now, some of the devices, you can log it right there in the field, but sometimes you'll have to go back to your computer and log it that way. Okay, a log is what you say to the owner and shows up on the listing like the one I said. I'd like to share this one that was a log that I think it was sometime last year maybe. This was somebody from Barcelona, Spain. They found the one at the fossil beds, and this is what they said. A new visit to the U.S. and Canada, 21 days and 12 states in the U.S. and 2 in Canada with another group. 7,000 miles, 4,150 caches. We enjoyed very much the views, the people, the wild animals, most of the time the weather, and the caches. Thanks to everyone for placing all these caches. I've seen more than just this one, logs of people that come from Europe or from wherever, and they come on a geocaching mission, and they do things like this, find that many. That's amazing to me. And one thing that you do want to do when you do a log is thank the owner for placing it. Okay, so you're going to log your visit that you did not find or you did find it. You're going to write your notes. More about trackables later. That's a comment section. So anything you want to share, what you were doing, just like that guy did, that's a good thing to do. Talk about your experience and you thank the owner for the cache. And I read every single one that we get on all of the ones we do, and they're really fun to read. And I share them with the board. Okay. All right, so where you're going to post it is, remember that green box at the top on the first page will bring you to this, and where it says found it, you might say it needs maintenance to alert the owner that there's something wrong with the cache. It got water in it or it was messed up or something. So you can put needs maintenance. When that drops down, you can also do a did not find, which hopefully you don't find that if you're doing this hobby, because you don't want to go out and not find them. Okay, so when you log something, like I said, the owner receives an email. What you get is a smiley face on the geocaches, like when that first page in and we put all the fluorescent geocaches and it shows them, it'll put a smiley face next to the ones you found. So you know not to go do those again unless you want to. Okay, so what was that, Donna? What? I know, see? It's a good thing. A smiley face is a happy thing, right? Okay, there are different types of geocaches. The first one is a traditional, which is just a physical container carrying the logbook and the trade items, possibly a trackable. The next one is a multi, and those used to be my favorite kind. And those are the little icons you see on that page that says what kind they are. It'll show that. A multi is a cache with one or more container and multiple locations to visit. So it's kind of like a little bit more of a treasure hunt. Each location contains coordinates or instructions to find the next place until you finally found the physical cache. The next one is an unknown mystery or puzzle cache, which could be a traditional or a multi, but you solve some kind of puzzle. Our cemetery cache, we made a puzzle cache to make it more fun. And like I said before, geocachers are really, really creative. And this was started by nerds. And let me tell you, some of the ones I've looked on, I look at the sheet and all it has is a picture. And you're supposed to try to figure out what that puzzle means. There is a whole book that geocaching.com has out to solve puzzles. So some of them are really complex. I did not want to do that because I look at that and I go, I'm not doing that one. Find another one. So I wanted to make ours accessible to everyone and just be a little bit more fun and more challenging. There are virtuals, which is really not a container. It's just taking you to a really interesting place. That's a little bit different than an earth cache. An earth cache also doesn't have a physical container. It is a special place that people can visit to learn about a unique geoscience feature or aspect of the earth. A lot of times the owners ask you different questions about it and want you to post a picture. The next three are pretty advanced. I'm not going to go into those. And the other one is an event cache. And like the one we went to in Colorado Springs where the coloradogeocaching.com did geocaching.com, it's listed for a one-day event. You go. A lot of times they'll meet at a hamburger place and just get together with other cachers. So events are another fun thing. Another type is a challenge type, which we're going to do a geocaching family-friendly event on our Heritage Days. They won't be finding our physical caches because we don't want to lead a lot of muggles there, but we will be having another different thing, and they'll be history related. They'll have to go to a place, the coordinates. They'll find an answer to a historic question relating to that place, and then they'll turn that in and they can win a prize. So that's going to be a fun thing that we're going to do. Another type of challenge I did, I went a couple of years ago to Santa Fe with a friend, and I knew the tourism place or the visitor center had put out a geocaching event that you could do. We walked all over the downtown Santa Fe area looking for history-related places, answering questions, and got a stamp. And so that was a really fun way to learn Santa Fe. There's one in Grand Lake that we found, and then another one in Missouri somebody told me about. So challenges can be all over. So if you're traveling in your state parks, every place, a lot of them have different things like that. That's like a whole nother dimension that adds a lot more fun to an already fun hobby. Okay, want to talk, back up. Okay, go ahead, sorry. Okay, so like I said, on an Earth cache, this, I don't know exactly what that feature is, but they took you to that. They had 4 different questions they want you to find the answer to. A lot of times there's some kind of information there, or you listen to a guide or whatever. So you're going to email those questions to the owner, and a lot of times they want you to post a selfie or something with it. Okay, GeoTour is another whole different type of fun with geocaching. It's a combination of geocaching and tourism, and they're all over the world. Not quite all over, but more in the States, but some in Europe and even down here in Australia, and that's probably New Zealand, I guess. So they're all over. And so that's kind of related to tourism, that different groups. And when we first moved here 5 years ago, I was looking on the geocaching website, looking for things new, and saw this new thing called GeoTours. At that time, there were only about a handful around, but the closest one was right in South Park in Park County. Hidden by the South Park National Heritage Area. They started out with 25, and if you found so many, you could get a t-shirt. If you found more than that, you could get a coin, a special coin. They added up to 50, and now they have 76. So those are all history related. Well, when I was on the board, I was like, we should do something like that. It costs $5,000 to do that, which we don't have that budget. So I said, we can just place our own. So that's what we did. If you want to learn a little bit more about GeoTours, this box right here, you can check out the latest articles from the geocaching blog, which is really interesting information. You can ask questions, get advice. You can see awards that GeoTours and different hosts have received for those things. GeoTours, go ahead, are actually all over the place. And if you're traveling, that's a really good thing to check out. The national park has 87 hidden. A lot of state parks have a lot in them. I think in Arkansas, every state park in Arkansas has at least one geocaching. There is a Route 66 in northern Arizona that has 46. Internationally, Azores Islands in Portugal has 150. The Smithsonian National History actually has a GeoTour. They're all over and really add another dimension. In fact, one thing I was going to tell you about Earth caches, there is the one at the fossil beds, and if you want to go see Garden of the Gods in a different area, there are several Earth caches throughout the Garden of the Gods, and that gives you information about the balancing rock, all kinds of information. It's like getting a tour guide through there, so that's really a fun part. These right here, all of those blue little raindrop things are all of the ones, I don't know, I didn't count them if that's 76, but I think that's a current one. Those are all the ones in Park County. And some of them are really close. Some of them you may be driving by. In Fairplay, there's some. Alma, there's some, and they're history related. But there are some that are way out in the middle of no place in Park County, and they're really interesting because it's a ranger cabin or something that you didn't even know existed. So there's a lot of variety in the South Park history one. Okay, so if you want to find more information, where would you look? Down at the bottom when you first logged on, and if you go all the way to the bottom, over in that red circle over there, there is GeoTours and Travel if you want to learn more about that. There are a lot of times promotions and advertisements, like Jeep did a promotion. There was one related to a movie, I don't remember, a book. And so there's a lot of promotions like that that are time sensitive and can be really fun. Also, this place right here under Contact Us, the Help Center, you can find nearly everything. It takes you to their groundspeak.com, and you can enter a question, or it has a list of all kinds of things. If you're going, well, I don't know how to do this, or I don't remember, or I want to learn this, that's a good place to check. The other place is I sometimes just Google things. There's a bunch of information on Pinterest, on all kinds of websites related to geocaching. Okay, like I said, there is a handy reference guide. There's some manila sheets up here if you want to take them. Feel free to get one of those. The Geocaching Colorado brochure is up there. And I'm going to, go ahead. You post it on the geocaching.com. Yes. No, we did that. And the geocaching guidelines tell you very specifically about, like if we put 1.5 on some of ours because if it's on a dirt road, even though it's like right off the road, it's not handicap accessible necessarily because you couldn't get a wheelchair up the hill as easy. So we made that like a 1.5. So we do that, but they hides it. Right. And like the reviewer, when we posted the one at the cemetery, it's right on a fence, which borders the national, the fossil beds. Well, when the reviewer looked at that, he said, this looks like it's in the national park, because of course he's just looking online. It looked to him like it was in the national park. Luckily, I had taken a picture of that one where it was, and so I explained about it, and it had the information about the Historical Society taking care of that. So he didn't have a problem with that, and he went ahead and published it. So the reviewers might question you about something, but otherwise they just enable them. So one of the FTF is a first to find, and really a lot of people, when you first get that published, when it's on there, and we don't have any say-so over that, we know when we send it to the reviewer, but he just, whenever he gets to it, they have about up to a week. We've always done it really fast, and it gets done really fast. And at least 3 of ours, somebody from Woodland Park, 3 Williams kids, drove up from Woodland Park at 5:45 in the morning to be the first to find some of our, that's a very avid geocacher, let me tell you. That was really fun. And one of our first to finds, the one by Twin Creek Ranch, the horse came over and they posted, because you can post pictures on the log too, they posted a picture of the horse greeter that came to see them. So that was kind of fun. Okay, the TNLNSL is something you can just, you don't want to have to write all of that out in the log that you're writing in the cache. Took nothing, left nothing, signed log. Did not find we talked about that. Thanks for the cache, you can just do TFTC. Or thanks for the hide. Swag is the stuff we all get. We talked about that. Travel bug we're going to talk about. Ground zero is right at the cache. That would be the GZ ground zero. And then the 1/1 is, or 3/15, that is referring to the difficulty in terrain on that 5-star scale. Talked about bring your own pin, GC code, and cash in, trash out. Okay, so now we're going to talk about trackables really quick. Yes, by reading the description, because if you're in a city situation or you have to go into a building, not too many are in buildings, but just as an example, it's probably not going to be dog friendly. Pretty much all of ours are dog friendly because they're, yeah, you have to go by the regulations. And a lot of times, like the one at the museum, I posted the hours that are open, because if you don't want to go there thinking the museum's going to be open if it's not going to be open. So most owners provide that information. And that could also be one of the attributes. I think that is one of the attributes that says dog friendly. So you would want to look at that. Yeah, picture of a dog. There you go. Yeah, but like I said, if you're out in the woods, that, unless you're someplace, like if you're doing the one on the fossil beds, you have to go by their regulations. And some places will charge a fee, like the fossil beds, if you go do that one, but that's usually listed in the description on the geocache. Okay, so what is a travel bug or a geocoin? I actually have 2 examples right here that we found recently and we are placing when we leave here, because one of the things about travel bugs or geocoins is it's really tempting to kind of keep them, but they are on a mission and you really don't want to keep them and hold them up. You want to grab, move them, and drop them. This was in a little Ziploc thing, and it's a geofossil ammonite, and its purpose is to stay in premium or rural caches and travel to or near museums or fossil sites. So, boy, is that one in the right place. But it also had a thing in there that says, you found a trackable item, take but do not keep, and to please log me, because you're going to log that, because whoever's watching this that placed it, that sent it out there, is going to be watching for that information. Here's another one that we recently found. This is Carl and Carla. Usually there's not 2 together, but these 2 guys are traveling together. Carl and Carla the elk. And so those are other ones we're going to place out. So they all have an ID number. I don't know where this one is. But anyway, they all have an ID number that you're going to find someplace on the thing, and that's what you're going to use to log it. Sometimes they have a goal. They might want to visit all the state capitals, just like that one wanted to be near museums or fossils. They might send one out that it wants a picture taken by some place, or it's heading for a final destination. So they all have different things, but they each have those ID codes. And go ahead. What you're going to do is under that play section, the drop down, you're going to choose trackables. And that's where you're going to put that ID thing in, and you're going to log it right there as a trackable so that it keeps, and then place it in another geocache so somebody else can pick it up and keep it on its way. This page also is where you can find more information about geocoins, travel blogs, and like those promotions that I talked about, like G4x4 Geocache had a challenge, United for Diabetes, a travel bug, there's travel bug frequently asked questions and geocoin frequently asked questions. So that has a lot of information, and that's another fun thing. We found one before that, like the Flat Stanley thing, are you all familiar with that? It's kind of the same thing, only these are logged. When we went to Geocache in Colorado, there was a guy there. They used to have these with a hiking stick with an ID on that, and that was a traveling geocoin. He took it to places. He also had a big giant teddy bear that was a trackable. So they can be in all kinds of fun things. Okay, this is a photo of our furthest to find. We actually did a geocache in Thailand when we went to visit our daughter who was living there then. And this is at the highest spot in Thailand, which is actually 300 feet lower than where we live here. So that was kind of fun. So I hope that we have inspired you